The Magicians Podcast, brought to you in association with the Magic Circle.
He's done a ton of television, including BBC One on Saturday nights. He is without question one of the finest live magic performers this country has ever produced. Rarely seen in the magic community until today. Welcome to a very special edition of the Magicians Podcast with Pete Firman.
Hush not, child, and don't cry. Your folks might understand you by and by. Just move on up toward your destination.
That's not our usual theme music, as you know, but that music is used at the beginning of the Pete Firman 2014 Edinburgh and touring show for Pete's entrance, and well, basically it's just perfect, isn't it? Because, you know, it's got great energy, it's got a great tempo, and some of Pete Firman's Edinburgh shows over the last 8 years really have been pretty close to perfect at times. They've just got everything you could want in a magic show. They've got great scripting, they've got brilliant choice of tricks, and I can't wait to talk to Pete about it today. I was absolutely over the moon when he agreed to do this interview because he doesn't really mix in the magic community. You might know that. You'll notice you never really see him at conventions or anything like that. So to spend an hour with him to chat about his career is a real privilege. Let's do the housekeeping though. If you don't follow us on Twitter, please go and do it now. We are at Magician Podcast, no S on the Magician. If Facebook is your vehicle, search for our Facebook page, which is simply The Magicians Podcast. Give us a like on that page if you haven't already. If you've got a couple of spare minutes, please do leave a little review for us on iTunes. It helps with our search engine ranking on the iTunes store. A little review, 5 stars obviously, will really assist us with that. Pete Firman has done 8 years straight at the Edinburgh Fringe Festival, a brand new show every single year. In addition to that, he's also done loads and loads of television work. I went and met him at the Magic Circle headquarters. Pete is not a member, but they very kindly lent us a room to record this podcast in. Here he is then, Mr. Pete Firman. Pete, first of all, thank you so much for doing this. I know you're a very, very busy man.
Absolute pleasure, Richard.
And I want to start right at the beginning, actually.
Okay.
Middlesbrough boy.
Yeah.
Tell me about your childhood and how you got into magic, that kind of thing.
I'm sure everyone's given you a similar answer, but I got a magic set, Fisher-Price magic set at about 7 or 8, and then a book, and what was the book? The Pocket Book of Magic by Peter Eldin, and then did, you know, school shows, talent show, Christmas, variety things in primary school and then secondary school, and you
wanted to be an actor, I think, didn't you? Is that?
Yeah. So through school days, as well as doing my little magic act at those kind of things, I was doing school plays and review shows and stuff like that. So not just a precocious little kid, all these different kinds of performance. But latterly, sort of when I had to decide what I was going to do for a job, when I was thinking about a career, I did want to be an actor. I did a theatre A level and I've got a Bachelor of the Arts degree in theatre.
Right.
And that was what I was going to do. That was my ambition.
You went to uni in Scarborough. What was that like?
Scarborough, yeah. It was really nice, actually. I'm from Middlesbrough, obviously, and I'm very fond of the north and of Yorkshire, and it was lovely to study by the sea there. And I got a little job in. There's a great theatre called the Stephen Joseph Theatre, where quite a prolific playwright called Alan Ayckbourn puts on all his shows. They all premiere there, and I worked there, and I got a bit friendly with Alan, and he found out I was a magician, and I ended up sort of teaching a couple of actors magic tricks in a couple of productions or whatever. I've got really happy memories of my time in Scarborough. And
so when you were doing this degree in theatre, what sort of things were you into aside from magic in theatre?
I was fascinated by acting, and we did our course was very much a contemporary course, so we didn't really do a great deal of Shakespeare or Beckett or anything like that. A lot of physical theatre, and we had visiting companies, and there's a national drama festival that they happen to be doing in Scarborough, and we performed there. So I loved theatre. As a teenager, I loved music. I loved going to gigs, all that kind of thing. Pretty normal, really. I always did magic. After I finished secondary school, when I was at college and I needed a bit of extra cash, I didn't work a bar then. I got a gig at a restaurant doing magic tricks. What happened was, this restaurant near us in Middlesbrough, we'd heard that there was a magician that used to work there. Well, we thought there was a magician that worked there, and as a family we went down to sort of watch, and found out that he'd left the gig. He wasn't doing it anymore. And my dad had this bright idea, said, why don't you see if you can get yourself a little job there? And he kind of orchestrated a meeting with the guys who ran the restaurant, and ended up getting a little residency there, and that was great fun.
So how old were you around this time? What was this?
So this would be like 16, 17 years old.
Oh wow!
Something like that.
Really?
Yeah. So and then close up. So then I ended up doing that. Led to doing 2 nights a week at that restaurant, and then a couple of other restaurants I would do other nights of the week, and I did a little bit of that in Scarborough. But to be honest, I was spending more of my uni days just doing what you're supposed to do at uni, like getting drunk and going partying and all that kind of thing.
So did you ever have any normal jobs? Because that was pretty young to have a residency.
Not at that stage. When I went to Scarborough, I worked in a bar, and then in the holidays, in the summer holidays, and actually in the interim before moving to London to start doing magic shows, etc., I worked for my dad. My dad is a car salesman, or was. He's retired now. He used to sell cars and repair cars. That's the family business. So my dad did that. My grandfather did that. And there was, I sort of thought about doing it myself, but
you would have been amazing at selling cars.
Yeah, banter, right?
Yeah.
It's just the same. It's all lying, isn't it? One lady owner.
Yeah.
Yeah, used to go to the shops and back once a week.
Come on, fella, it's a bargain.
Yeah, exactly. Pretty fair. So that was another job that I did, but sort of all the other jobs outside of magic that I've done have just been like part-time jobs when I was studying. I've never, I didn't like work in an office and then decided to switch and become a magician.
You were very lucky then, so from 15, 16 you knew what you wanted to do, basically, is that?
Well, not really. I mean, the magic was a hobby and a way to make a bit of extra money, and was fun, obviously. But I was very much still into theatre, and when I graduated from uni, I was going to have a bit of time. I was going to work for my dad, and then I was going to do a postgraduate acting diploma. And I was looking around for where I might be doing that, and then I saw a wanted ad on Magic Week, and that was for Monkey Magic. So I don't know whether I fast forwarded through your time.
Well, yeah, there's a little bit you fast forward, because I've also got that. It's quite funny because I've already used the word fella, and when you're show you use that word a lot, and it's hilarious.
Fella.
But you were in a triple act, as far as my research goes. An act called Three Fellas.
Well, it was never an act. It was me and 2 mates. We would get together and make daft little videos. Yeah, right. One of us had a video camera, and it was just mess about for our own amusement. I think this is probably pre-YouTube, so we weren't doing anything with the videos. Just like-minded mates, really. That was that. But it was one of those mates that helped me shoot a magic taster tape that ended up being my kind of introduction to Objective Productions and the beginning of that relationship.
So Objective Productions, I think you auditioned the end of 2002, and Monkey Magic was early 2003.
So I think beginning of 2002 was probably about when I sent the video off.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, we have skipped over. I should really mention the Middlesbrough Circle of Magicians. I know we're in the magic circle as we speak, Richard, but I'm going to be a bit controversial. The finest magical society in the UK. And I joined the preparatory group, which is in a junior section.
Right.
There was guys of all ages, and I joined there when I was 13, and that was really good, really good. So I just mentioned that because I didn't want you to think, or people to think, that I was working in isolation on magic tricks when I was a youngster. They were a great support. And
did you have anyone like who you worked particularly close with? Like, did anyone sort of really take you under their wing when you were sort of a teenager, or was it just sort of sessioning from time to time with different magicians?
Lots of people did, and it wasn't. It wasn't like sessioning. There were meetings. What's great about the club is every fortnight, can't remember, you had to do a trick, you had to perform, and you had to do a broad section of stuff, so you couldn't just stick to card tricks. You had to do handkerchief tricks, or apparatus magic, or you had to do all this variety thing. And they've got like a scoreboard, and at the end of the year, the person that's the best magician wins the prize. Brilliant.
Right. Did you win it?
No, I never won it. Good pedigree though. Me, Archer, Daniels, Kevin Ray, who sadly passed away, was a great card worker, and lots of other great members. But particularly a good comedy magic pedigree for some reason.
So when you start, 2002, 2003, you do Monkey Magic. Mm-hmm. Were you immediately taken under the wing of Objective Talent Management and Michael Vine, or did that come a bit later? Or
no, that sort of came later. So I see a wanted ad on Magic Week. Duncan Trillo's website, fantastic website, and it was Objective Productions looking for magicians, and they wanted young, irreverent, sort of in the style of Brassai, Jackassy, that kind of thing. Send your show reel to X, Y, and Z. I didn't have a show reel, so I got together with my two pals from Three Fellas, Paul and Andy, and we just knocked up a tape. Like the first part of it was us just farting about, having a laugh, doing these daft sketches. And then I thought, well, if they're looking for magicians, they probably should see a bit of magic. So then I went to a pub and did what I might have done the type of material that I was doing when I was working restaurants. I sent it to them, and I was in Canada on holiday at the time, and Andrew O'Connor, who ended up being the exec on Monkey Magic, phoned my dad and had a little bit of a chat with him, and that was a bit weird, just sort of came out of the blue. And then my dad told me about it when I called home from Canada, and within a fortnight I'd come to London for a meeting.
Right.
So, and didn't know I was going to really get the gig, didn't really know where the project was at that point. Mm-hmm. Turns out it wasn't for a pilot, they had a commission, and they were ready to go into production, and they were down a person, and we had a meeting, and Andrew said there and then, do you want to do the show? And I was like, yeah.
That's amazing, right? How does that feel like? So how old are you then, 22?
I wasn't 22, I was 21 then.
21?
With no ambition of being a magician as a job, and, didn't really, it was great. I mean, because I was in that interim period, you see, because all I was doing was working for my dad with a view to doing this post-grad acting thing. And it was going to take a few months, and I thought, that'll be a laugh, and then ended up staying in London and blah, blah, blah.
Monkey Magic, were you involved creatively, or were they sort of more giving you the tricks to do at that point?
No, it was quite creative. It was, in fact, part of that meeting was Andrew and, Anthony Owen at the time, and so that was who the meeting was with, Anthony and Andrew. They sat down and they said, this is the premise, it's for magicians, and you're hanging out, and it's what magicians would maybe do to amuse each other. And here's a strand. So we've got a strand called blindfold magic, or we've got a hidden camera magic strand. What tricks might you do? And I was just, off the top of my head, I just spitballed a few things, and somebody said that was good, and blah, blah, blah. And then he said, you've got the gig. And I leave the office a bit kind of like, wow, that's weird. Called my mum and dad, and they were chuffed, and of course it's telly, and it all seems very exciting. And then went away, and then Anthony started copying me in on these round robin emails on material, and then I was submitting stuff, and that would, inevitably, you start with a large pot of stuff, and it gets cut down to A, what they can afford, B, what's going to be achievable, and C, usually the last, whether they think it's any good or not. We all were very much creating that show, the four of us and Anthony and Andrew.
Was that the first time you met Ali? working on Monkey Magic?
Yeah, that was the first time I met Ali.
Because you two became really good friends. I think you even lived together for a while.
We lived together for a while. Yeah, Ali's he's a great pal. He's a good mate. That was the first time I'd met him. He'd been to the Middlesbrough Circle annual dinner or something as a turn. He was booked to do it. So I'd seen him work, but that was the first time that we met properly, and yeah, we became great mates. I mean, mates with all the boys,
You weren't called Pete Firman at the time. They gave you all names. I think were you Tufty?
Tufty was my
How do you feel about that when you get a TV series, but they go, actually, no, you're not going to be your name? Because surely that's what you're trying to build anyway, isn't it?
I suppose retrospectively you might think that. I didn't think anything of it at the time, and I think as far as Andrew, because it was Andrew's great vision, it was Andrew's idea, and I think, it just wanted it to be like a boy band almost, like the Spice Girls, Ginger, Spoy, that kind of shorthand, who everyone is, because we all had our own little look and everything. So I think it was just about sort of building that. Other things I should say as well, another great creative force at the time was Andy Nyman. We were working with Andy on the routines, mainly kind of literally routining them, so working on script and what the presentation's going to be, and that I've got great memories of that, going to Andy's house or being in a rehearsal room and just hanging out, because he's a force of nature, such good fun and so creative. Other you know what? It's 10 years ago.
I know, it's a long time ago.
I don't think I've watched them since they went out.
It's hard actually. I've got to be honest, because I said this to Anthony's done a podcast with me actually, and I said I love Monkey Magic. Actually, I really did. And he said, magicians didn't seem. Anthony said this on the podcast, that magicians didn't really seem to like it.
Right.
Does that bother you if you do something on TV and magicians don't seem to like it? Or is that's not your audience? I don't know.
I never really give it that much thought. I mean, of course, it's nice to be. It's nice that if your peers enjoy what you do, but I suppose it's not really the be all and end all to me. I was never one of those. I've never been really into the magic scene. I went to a handful of Blackpool conventions when I was a kid, when I was living in Middlesbrough, but I've never really done that kind of thing, sessioning, getting together and doing stuff like that. I've just been just done my own thing, really.
Why is that? Because people do say it. We don't see you at conventions or shows or anything like that. Is that a decision to just completely do your own thing? And I think, is it fair to say you have quite a small circle of people you do work quite closely with?
Yeah, I've got a small circle of friends, full stop. But certainly in magic, I've got a few people that I work with. I don't know, really. I suppose lately, because I do so much magic, and magic is such, it's on my mind constantly. Why, if I have some time off, why would I want to go and submerge myself in
more of it?
More of it, exactly. And even as a kid, even being very young and very naive, there was a lot of, I'm talking about Blackpools from the 90s, there was a lot of magicians I would watch, and even as a kid, I would know that they were no good.
Oh, really?
Not no good because they were doing great tricks, but it didn't mean anything to me. Do you know what I mean?
Who does really connect with you? So when you were a kid, are there magicians that were inspirations to you? Or?
Magicians. The magician that I really liked as a kid was probably Jay Sankey, because I liked his magic. And also just liked his sort of, it was so much more than the tricks, and that's kind of always been my ethos, really. It's got to be more than the trick. It's got to be the person. You just really liked Jay, and he was very funny, and of all of those kind of, comedy, I don't even know if Jay's a comedy magician. He's just a funny magician, isn't he? I just really liked watching him and always enjoyed his lectures, and if he was on at a convention, I would look forward to seeing him work.
That's really interesting. I wondered if part of the reason you don't sort of mix with magicians was that you were on the comedy scene. I wondered if a lot of your friends were comedians and things like that. And that's around the same sort of time, as far as my research is telling me. That was when you started doing comedy clubs, around that sort of... Yeah. What was the decision to do that? Why did you go down the comedy club route?
So what happened was... This period was a bit of a golden time at Objective Productions. They were making a lot of magic shows for television. Obviously, they had Darren. They'd done the Quick Trick Show, Monkey Magic. Ali did a show called Secrets of the Psychics Revealed. We did the they did the 50 greatest magic tricks. They did greatest magic tricks in the universe. So they're making all these magic shows, and they get this commission, excuse me, from Channel 4 to make a studio magic show called Dirty Tricks. And you've got to remember that magic shows at the time, Monkey Magic and those other things were post Blaine. So Blaine was sort of the catalyst for all of this stuff happening. And of course that was all out and about, and all the shows that we'd done were all out and about. So the idea of taking a magic show back into a studio was a bit of a throwback, you know. It was, and the guys at Channel 4 were interested in that, but they wanted it to be very irreverent and late night. And I was given a strand where I was showing celebrities tricks in the studio, and I just wanted to try and run the tricks up to speed. So I dropped into a comedy club with a couple of the routines I was doing, and that's when I really got bitten by the bug. Because when I was making Monkey Magic, I was doing the odd close-up gig. Ali had been a bit of a king of close-up in London, so he had a lot of gigs, you know, and if he needed like a couple of magicians, he'd say, do you want to come and do this, whatever. Or if he couldn't do it, I'd do it, and that was great. And I really didn't like close-up. I really didn't enjoy... I didn't enjoy it. I enjoyed doing it, but I just hated that interrupting people and it sort of feeling a bit like an imposition sometimes. It's not always the case, you know. Sometimes it can be really rewarding, but I just... Maybe it was my sort of grounding in theatre. I just like the idea of being on a stage and everyone's facing the right way and a show starts, you know, rather than trying to land a show in someone's conversation or their little social gathering. So I was really, really did not like close-up. Also, you know, I'd done a couple of telly things, and if I was at an event and I would go over to someone and they would sort of recognise me off the telly, they would ask why I was walking. Why are you walking around?
Yeah.
It's like it was sort of a bit of a weird dynamic. So I didn't like that. And in trying to get my material up to speed for the TV gig, I dropped into a comedy club and loved it. I mean, I was a fan of comedy anyway. And even when I was doing close-up, I was trying to make it as funny as I could, you know. So I just got bitten by the bug then. That was sort of my first foray into it. That was about 2004, something like that. And
do other comedians kind of, are they okay with you being a magician in a comedy club, or you know?
Not all of them. I think some of them think it's cheating, you know, in the way that they would think that a musical act using a guitar is cheating, or a prop comic. But you know, at the time I was just happy to be there. It took so much longer to get good at doing comedy clubs than it did to get good at doing close-up.
Right.
There's no shortcut. And I would, you know, I've gone in the comedy club route, but I would imagine if you were building any sort of stage act, really, you know, I think it's a totally different ball game. It's really hard. Yeah. I found it really hard anyway.
Let's talk about Dirty Tricks, because that was an amazing series. You had some amazing guests come over from Vegas. And did you did the cigarette trick on that series? Yeah. What was that like to learn? So what happened was, Andrew really wanted the best or most interesting guest act, and he really wanted Mullica. Of course, why wouldn't you? Tom had stopped doing the act for health reasons, or we heard back that he'd stopped doing the act. Maybe he just didn't want to do the gig. Now, Tom had published a book. He put the routine in a book. He published a set of videos on cigarette magic where he taught the routine with a disclaimer of this will hurt, you shouldn't really do this, it's going to be painful, I accept no responsibility. But it was sort of out there, and Andrew bought me the tapes and said, why don't you go away and try and learn that? So that was it, really. So Andrew really wanted that in the show, and because Tom wasn't available, wasn't doing it, whatever. Were you a smoker anyway? Or? No, I don't smoke. So you don't smoke? I don't smoke. Oh my goodness. So he said, can you get this together? But I got there in the end with it. I mean, I say got there, I wouldn't even dare to say that I was anywhere near Tom Mullica, because, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, he's a god. But I was able to do it, and I did it on the show. And it's always weird when you do something on telly that then ends up being in your act, because often you get it together for the telly,
you're committed to videotape and it goes out and whatever, and if it stays in your act, it always becomes better. So it's always slightly depressing looking back on something because you're like, crikey, if I'd have just had, you know, a couple more years to do it. But I mean, telly's always the way, just eat some material and there's never enough time. So that particular routine ended up being in what was my early comedy club act.
Yeah. Tell me about some of the things on Dirty Tricks that you enjoyed doing, because how many episodes were there? 6? Was it 6?
It was about 6, yeah. So I only did... my remit was to do kind of shocking or gross tricks. So there was the Mullica routine. That's when we came up with the mouse in the blender routine. I did a routine where regurgitated goldfish and the maggot in my eye and the fishing.
You enjoy doing this type of magic?
Well, at the time I did. Yeah, at the time I did, and because that was all of the material that I had at the time, because I ran it up to speed for the TV show. That ended up being what the bulk of my early comedy club act was, and I think it was a good... I remember a comedy club booker saying to me once, I really like your act, Pete, because you don't do that trick with a pyjama cord that all the magicians do. And what she was referring to was a cut and restored rope, which is a lot of guys do, which is fine, you know, it's a good trick. But I think that because what I was doing was quite different from any other magicians, and I don't think there were that many work in the comedy circuit, I think it just helped differentiate me from that group.
So I'm not sure if forgive me, because I couldn't really find this out when I was looking whether this was before or after Dirty Tricks. Was you did a TV series which I think any magician who watched it would have been incredibly jealous. With Ali, it was on Sky One. It was called The Secret World of Magic.
Yeah.
And you went around the world meeting magicians and doing tricks and making a TV series, and you visited. And that's an incredible gig. How did that come about?
That was it was a dream gig. It was a lovely thing to do. It came about, again, going back to that golden period of Objective Productions. Andrew O'Connor, the man with the magic touch, they were the people to go to if a broadcaster wanted a magic show, and Sky One did, and Andrew pitched them this idea, and very kindly gave the gig to me and Ali, and we got to travel all over and met some amazing people. It was really, guys, do you want to travel around the world and meet some of your heroes? Yeah, I do actually. What, are you going to pay us as well? Brilliant.
Yeah,
I'm there.
You know John Gorn's workshop as well?
Yeah, Johnny Gorn, yeah, he was brilliant. Yeah, and we saw the Turk, and there's, as you can imagine, there's so much stuff there. You know, it's difficult to show everything, but we saw some wonderful automaton and props that were sort of in various stages of manufacture, and all sorts of, and it's just like a warehouse in the middle of nowhere in LA, just beside like a railway track or something, really unassuming, and he was delightful and charming, and there's a really funny video, part of the series, which I can't find on YouTube, which is where you and Ali do the origami illusion together in the workshop. That was great to do, and I think I might be wrong, I might be misremembering. I think John said that that's his favourite illusion, the origami illusion. And I think it is a great illusion, and it was fun to do it in that kind of Vegas-y, piss-takey way. It was brilliant, and brilliantly shot as well, because it was very deceptive, that particular illusion. It's very deceptive. Was it shot well? I thought, I used to have one actually. Oh, okay. And so I know its sort of limitations of where you can and can't, and it was done just to perfection, so they would have had no idea where that girl went. It was brilliant. Yeah, it's a great trick. So just to go back, so are you now, by now you're on board, Michael Vine's your manager by this point? Oh, crikey. I think I'd done so much with Objective, it was just natural that I would be with Michael, and Michael would look after me, and I think it's sort of about the time of Dirty Tricks, around that kind of period, I think, officially. What's it like having Michael Vine as your manager? Amazing. I don't think you could have a finer one, because he's been an act. He's very sympathetic. He understands. In the way that if you and I were talking about magic and the challenges of magic on stage, or in any environment, magic on television, he gets it because he knows what's going on, and he, for that reason, you don't have to convince him to fight in your corner if you need something to be a certain way. He understands. So he's wonderful. there's a few people without which I wouldn't be sort of doing what I'm doing, and he's definitely one of them.
That's amazing. Yeah, no, I did meet him once, and it was the funniest lunch I've ever had in my entire life.
Force of nature, isn't he?
He's done the thing on you where he's
done everything.
Can't get his jacket on. He's the hilarious. I've tried to get him on here actually. He's ignoring my emails. I'm persevering.
I'll have a word
because he's very, very funny man.
Free for 30 days. Be a pro. Get Gigi-O.
More from Pete in a moment. He's going to tell us all about his time on BBC One on Saturday nights. Not many magicians have done that. And he's going to talk to us about his 8-year-long run at the Edinburgh Fringe Festival with a brand new show every year. But right now, my friends, it's time to talk to you about Gigi-O! It's a web-based software designed for professional entertainers like yourself. The idea of the software is to make your life easier. It tracks your payments, it generates PDF contracts and invoices, and basically just keeps everything in a nice, neat place for you. It's web-based, so you don't need to download any software, and it was invented by Martin Rowland. All the top professionals are using it. If you go to gigio.co.uk, that's Gigi-O spelled Gigio.co.uk right now, you can take a free 30-day trial. If you visit the website, you'll also see what all the other working professionals are saying about it. It's brilliant. That's Gigi-O. Go to the website and take the 30-day trial right now.
The Magicians Podcast, brought to you in association with the Magic Circle, the world's premier magical society. Are you ready to join the world's most exclusive magic club? Visit themagiccircle.co.uk to find out more.
So I think this is we're moving to like the biggest, I think you would agree, probably the biggest gig you did so far, which is BBC One, Saturday nights, The Magicians.
Uh-huh.
I mean, incredible, first of all. Saturday night, there you are.
Brilliant,
How did that all come about?
Well,
so you were on the second series, weren't you?
I was on the second series, yeah, and I was in the running for the first series, but it didn't happen for whatever reason. And how did it come about? Well, I guess, they came and saw me in Edinburgh, and someone comes and someone else comes, and then someone from the BBC comes, and then they want a video so they can show other people at the BBC. It was a long process. And eventually someone sort of said yes, and that really was, a great ambition realised, because when I was a kid, it was studio magic shows, Wayne, Paul, Geoffrey Durham, Best of Magic. Those were the shows that I was watching as a kid. So to be able to be on Weekend, Shiny Floor, Live, there was lots and lots of boxes ticked there. Really very stressful, as you can imagine, but brilliant. And in terms of sort of raising my profile and allowing me to do things that I wasn't able to do before, it's been great.
Why stressful? I'm quite interested. Just because of the big audience, or
the live TV thing. Magic. It's always nice to have that safety net of an edit. Not to do jiggery pokery per se, but just to. You flashed that, so we can work around it in the edit, whatever it might be. There was none of that safety net, and I think my sort of grounding as a live worker came into its own. Because you had this celebrity in tow, so it wasn't just doing tricks on your own as you used to. You're working with someone that you might have only had for a couple of days to get a routine together. Unexpected things happen, and I think my sort of live instincts helped me a little bit. I think.
Did it bother you having a celebrity involved?
Well, I mean, that's the reason for the show.
Yeah.
I mean, that's it would be great. It would be great to do the Pete Firman Magic Show, or just a balls out magic show, but that is not going to happen.
Right.
There needs to be a. People in telly talk about a high concept. There needs to be celebrities are going to become magicians. There's going to be a phone-in. It's going to be a competition. These are the things that broadcasters like. These are the things that they want. So yeah, I mean, yeah, it wasn't ideal, but what, you're not going to do the gig? Of course you're not.
Of course.
You know. So
The donkey vanish on the beach. That was pretty amazing.
yeah,
That's on YouTube. You can find that. Pete
Yeah.
Firman making a donkey vanish on a beach in broad daylight.
It was just lovely to have some money and have people say, "Oh no, not that, bigger, more spectacular."
Oh wow!
You know,
really?
yeah, you know, we would pitch things and no, bigger needs to be bigger. How can we up the ante? And what was also interesting was because it was a live program. You know, there would be analysts after each episode that would say, "Oh, we had a spike in viewers at this point, so we need to sort of replicate that somewhere down the line in the series." So they were really kind of analysing it and sort of seeing what was working, what perhaps wasn't working, how we can tweak it to make it slightly different. So, I mean, the show was done at Shepperton Studios, and it was on a massive soundstage, and it was a standing set. You know, very often with TV shows, they maybe shoot a couple of episodes, they throw the set up, and then it's all packed away. A standing set at Shepperton Studios for 8 weeks, I think. It was incredible.
Yeah.
So we had the whole week. We would go in our allocated slots, rehearse with the celebrities, camera rehearsals. You know, get props. We had a workshop there. Scott Penrose was there full time making stuff. We had other prop makers with stuff coming in from the US. I mean, it was just like everything you would imagine it was. It was just a great
dream gig, right?
Yeah, great gig. Really good fun.
Were you really in competition with the other magicians on that show, or you're all working together really?
Yeah. I mean, I was very lucky. You know, I got to work with 3 of my best mates, Stuart McLeod, Barry Jones, and Jonathan Goodwin. Jonathan was the consultant and working specifically with me and the boys, but the 4 of us kind of worked in collaboration on Barry and Stu's and my stuff, whether that be, you know, magic or gagging it up or, you know, a premise for a routine. We all sort of worked together, and that was great, and a couple of other friends came and consulted as well, so it was brilliant. It's nice when you can get a bit of a dream team together like that.
What was your favourite thing that you did on the series? Was it perhaps the scuba diving through the glass, or?
Crikey, I don't know really.
There's a lot of stuff you did on it, wasn't
I don't really watch it, and I can't watch it. I find it hard to watch because I don't know. I like doing the donkey thing. That was quite nice. What other things was in it? What else did I do?
Well, the one I watched last night was it was an amazing trick actually, was the scuba diving thing through.
Oh yeah, that was really good fun. That was a nightmare, but it was really good fun.
So that was literally, you were in an aquarium, I think, and you went into a tank to retrieve a prediction.
Yeah, there was a prediction premise set up, and then from that mentalism bit, it was sort of like I melt through the glass of the aquarium tank. That was sort of the big finale to it.
Pretty stunning, actually. It looked really great.
Oh, thanks, mate. Thank you. Appreciate that.
What sort of magic do you like doing, Pete? Do you like doing mentalism, or you prefer more sort of just standard tricks or old classics? Or
I don't know really, anything that I can find moments in, find funny. You know, my sort of. It's got to be, you know, I do comedy magic, so it's, and even though I hate the term comedy magic.
Do you? Why do you hate that?
I just think it sounds naff.
Right, okay.
As a term. I think comedy magician sounds naff, to be honest. But is it magical enough? Is it funny enough? Those are always the 2 questions when working on a new bit. So the type of magic that I like are very funny, strong tricks.
So this is the thing. I've been in Edinburgh for the last 4 years with my own little show.
Yeah.
And every year we come and see you.
That was very nice.
And you do an amazing show. But what's really, really amazing about your show is every year it's a new hour. Mm-hmm. I think this year just gone was your 8th year.
It was, yeah.
Up there. So first thing I want to talk about actually was the decision to go to Edinburgh in the first place. So we're going back 8 years ago. Yeah. So this would have been just after Dirty Tricks, I think, or maybe
this was a bit of an interim. So I guess we did Dirty Tricks in about 2005, 2006, and then first Edinburgh was 2007.
Right.
And yeah, so I'd done a lot of telly, and I was starting to get my stand-up act together because I had a bit of, I didn't have any telly on the horizon, so I was like, how am I going to make a living, So that's when I sort of really tried to make inroads into the comedy circuit and such like. So I was doing the comedy circuit. I was beginning to get gigs. People started to know who I was, and then Michael was approached by the Underbelly, who's one of the big promoters in Edinburgh. And they said that they would like to take me up and they would like to produce the show, and would that be of interest? And at the time, Michael and I had a few chats about me standing, because at the minute, at that particular time, I was just kind of doing 20-minute club sets. And I said to Michael that I would like to try and do a sort of a show, or stand up like an hour's worth of material. So we were talking about that anyway, and then this came along out of the blue, and it seemed like a good deadline to get that together. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it was sort of never really the plan to go to Edinburgh, but again, my career's been a lot of fortunate circumstances, and
I'm guessing you love it because you go back every year.
I do love it. I absolutely love it. I went, and the 2007, I'd been to Edinburgh as a punter, and I wasn't really aware of much magic there. And I think that first year I was there, maybe Jerry was there or something. But yeah, it was nice to be a bit of a novelty.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's loads of magic there.
There is,
There's tons.
Sorry about that, including us.
No. It's soon going to have its own little section, I think.
I think so.
Fringe Guide.
So, what's some of your eight shows? I've got them all here, actually, all the 8 shows. Yeah. I'm interested to know which one of the 8 was your favourite.
I've got inevitably it's more tricks within the shows that I really like, rather than the shows themselves, because that first one in 2007, that was like everything that I had. So all of my back catalogue became that first show.
Yeah.
And then you're like, well, crikey, there's no way that I can do this again. And then I had a good first year, so of course they wanted to take me back the following year. And needs must, you put it in the book and you get the show together.
Yeah. And
sometimes because of the texture that the show might need, something goes in at short notice or whatever, and so I don't think there's like a favourite show that I've got. There's sort of certain routines that I've got together that I'm quite pleased with.
Which ones?
I really like, the Mouse in the Blender was a TV item, and to get it as a live item was quite a challenge. So getting that together was good. So it became a good live piece. I do baking a cupcake in a shoe, which I was quite pleased with.
You did that on ITV, I think, didn't you?
Yeah, I did that for a guest spot on a stand-up show on ITV, yeah. And
it's really baffling, that trick.
Oh, thank you.
Really is.
Cheers. Well, it all started with the old Al Baker cake in the hat, and working backwards from that, and Jeffrey, who I've not mentioned Jeffrey. Again, another person without which I wouldn't be doing any of it really.
Jeffrey Durham.
Without Jeffrey, yeah.
Yeah.
So Jeffrey and I, on that particular trick, worked on that quite a lot. Found a routine in an old Bruce Elliott book, and yeah, sort of tweaked a few things, but so yeah, I really like that. Oh God, I don't know.
There's a lot of material, isn't there?
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff.
Do you know, Pete, I hope you don't mind me saying this, but I don't know which year it was, but I saw you in Edinburgh, and you screwed up a trick the night I was there.
All right, okay.
And you messed up the Torn Restored newspaper, which I've seen my double act partner Sam Strange do countless times. So,
okay, right.
I've got to admit, I wasn't like shocked.
Did the bits fall out?
I can't remember exactly, but what was amazing about it was how brilliantly you handled it. And actually, they just sort of loved you a bit more for it. And you were very much kind of like,
Did I cry?
No, you didn't. You were just hilarious, and you came alive because it was real.
Yeah.
Obviously, you perform all the time. When you have little mistakes sort of creep in from time to time, what's your thought process of dealing with them?
Well, if it's, I can't remember what that trick, that trick can screw up. Your clip can break or whatever, or you don't get the pieces in properly. Slightly unfortunate that you saw that performance, Richard, I might say, but never mind. Instinct kicks in. I've done so many gigs. I'm very comfortable on stage, and I think if it is a balls out mistake, then you've got to be honest with the audience and kind of laugh along with them, and audiences like the magician in trouble. That's one of my favourite devices in routining material is the magician in trouble. I think it's one of the most powerful things that a comedy act has at their disposal, actually. So audiences love it when they think it's gone wrong or when it does go wrong. So you're
not afraid of that you embrace it if that happens?
If it happens, yeah. Or if you can really make them believe it's gone wrong, but then have that be part of a routine, that's really good.
So as I said, you're churning out an hour of new material every year for the last 8 years. What's your process of doing that? When do you start on the next show? Are you working even as far ahead as while you're still doing this run of show, you're working on the next one? Or
sort of. Look, at my peak, when I started doing comedy clubs, I was doing at least 7 club gigs a week. Wow. And that would be 2 or 3 Friday, Saturday night in London. So I would open at one gig, middle at one gig, and close at another gig. And then I would do 2 or 3 during the week. So I was doing a lot of gigs. And that sheer volume of gigs and being able to drop in new routines here and there helps to get the show together. But also because you're socialising with a lot of comics and you're in a lot of dressing rooms, all comics, they're writing stuff down all the time, an idea, they'll say something on stage, immediately they'll come off and they'll make a note of it. So I just, that sort of, that notion of just, writing ideas or just, anything that comes to mind, any little premise, whatever, I just always have that notebook, and then come the time to stand it up, maybe I put myself a work in progress deadline in, and you sort of get it together, and ideas that I might have had for 2007 but didn't realise because I couldn't figure out how to do them, or maybe I had a trick that I really wanted to do but it clashed with something else, right. So prop-wise it didn't work or whatever. I always go back through the notebooks and just what next.
So have you got Jeffrey involved right from the beginning, or are you going to Jeffrey with kind of a loose outline of a show, or just specific tricks are you talking to Jeffrey about? Or
well, I mean, Jeffrey and I are first and foremost great mates. We socialise. We sort of have coffee like once a week, have lunch, whatever. His partner and my partner, we all go out and do stuff. So we're pals first and foremost. And what's great is there's not a stand-up magic trick that you can think of that he's either not done or not thought about. So from my point, he's just a wealth of knowledge. So he's been a great help. There's other people that I work with as well. Jonathan, Barry and Stewart. Got a friend in America called Mike Scott, who's a great magician. Got a friend in the UK called Neil Austin, who's a great magician. And all of these guys...
Neil's hilarious.
Neil's fantastic.
He's a cruise ship magician.
He works mainly on cruise ships. He does a comedy magic act, which I've never seen actually. I've seen bits of it, but I've never seen him do his whole act. I know he did a convention, which I couldn't. I was going to come and just watch him in the gala show, and apparently he tore the place apart.
I was there. Yeah,
were you there?
Yeah, he was. It was great.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
No, Neil is great, and again has a real understanding of comedy magic. He, from the bits I've seen, we're sort of similar, but my style and his style is very different, and I think he quite enjoys approaching the kind of work that I do, and he's got a great eye. He can, if I show him something or mention something to him, same with Jeffrey, they'll be able to say why it's good, articulate that very well, but also tell you why it's bad and why it shouldn't earn its place in the 55 minutes of material.
Sure, yeah. So may I ask what your sort of plan is with Edinburgh for the next sort of... Are you just going to keep doing the on the treadmill that you're on currently, or have you got different plans for Edinburgh? Or
so the way that Edinburgh works for me is I have a year to come up with a new show. I do the whole, and for people perhaps who aren't, I'm sure everybody listening knows about the Edinburgh Fringe Festival, but it runs through the whole of August, so you do about 25 shows or something like that. I usually will do that show on a tour as well, so I get quite a lot out of the product that I'm creating. So the process is usually Edinburgh and then tour. That's
do you enjoy the tour as much as Edinburgh? Or
I do, yeah. I've just finished a tour, so I went straight from Edinburgh into a tour, and I enjoy it very much. It's a privilege. to go out and do your little magic show. It's an absolute privilege.
Well, also, what I've noticed is I've seen you on tour a few times as well.
Oh, really?
It's how your audience grows. And
Yeah.
you're filling places now, whereas a few years ago they were 2/3 full. Now they're sort of full. Is that must be a rewarding...
It's great. I mean, I think that certainly to go back to the subject of Edinburgh, for me, I think the repeat business is a big part of that. I have done 8 years, and the first room that I was in was 150, and now I'm in a 336 seater room, and obviously the telly helps and all the rest of it. Obviously that helps, but if people have a good time, they come back because they go to Edinburgh every year with family or with pals, and it's like they go to Edinburgh and see the shows that they like, and if they liked it last time, they will come back.
So tell me about what's a day in the life like for Pete Firman in Edinburgh? Because it's a bit like Groundhog Day. So
Yeah.
how do you, and you're doing really, when we go, we do 21 days.
Right.
You do like 27, I think, quite often.
Yeah, is it 27? I don't know. It usually starts like the 31st of July.
You're doing a few
finishes.
previews.
Yeah.
And then you're running through to like the Bank Holiday Monday normally, I think.
Never do the Monday.
You never do the Monday?
I did it once, and I never do the Monday.
Why not?
The Sunday is always a bit of a downer after the last Saturday night. Not a downer, but it'd be nice to finish on the Saturday night. Boom,
Yeah.
But the Mondays, half of the venues are packing away. It just feels like everything's shutting down.
You're in the way.
Yeah, it's like the circus is all getting packed up. They're rolling up the big top and everything.
So what's your day-to-day
So day to day.
in Edinburgh? Because I've never ever seen... This is the great thing about the Edinburgh Fringe, if you've never been, is that no one's got a car, because you can't park anywhere.
Yeah.
So everybody has to walk everywhere.
Yeah.
But I've never seen you anywhere. So
Right.
where does Pete Firman go sort of during the day? What's your day routine in Edinburgh?
I live on my own at the festival. I rent a large flat that's got a spare bed, and my family come and stay for a week, and my partner comes, and Jeffrey might come, Neil might come, Jonathan might come, and I just have pals and just do normal stuff, and inevitably there's a little bit of admin. You've got to go out and do an interview, or maybe you're doing a lunchtime show, or all these external shows, etc. But you do become nocturnal as well. You do your own gig. You might do a late show. There's a lot of boozing that goes on, so you might sleep till midday or whatever, and then get up late. But just normal stuff, really. You probably don't see me walking around. I don't like walking around in Edinburgh. It's all those slow walkers, you get stuck behind them and can't get anywhere.
It's madness.
Yeah.
And obviously, the sort of profile you've got now, with the management you've got, from time to time, you'll be doing corporate events, which pay the bills.
Yeah.
Do you enjoy doing those? Do you your material you choose for those, are they kind of your more established routines?
Yeah, I mean, I've got what I call the act that I do, where I've really got to deliver at a club or deliver at a corporate, and then I will do my act. I quite like corporates. I know lots of people don't like them. I quite like them, and I think as magicians, certainly as stand-up magicians, we've got the safety net of the magic tricks. Mates of mine that are comics that go and do corporates, they hate it, because if the audience aren't going for their style, aren't buying into their sense of humour, that's all they've got. If I go on and do a first couple of gags and they don't land, well, at least I've got some tricks coming up that hopefully they'll like. So yeah, I think we're lucky in that regard, and it's knowing your venue as well. I approach each place. I approach TV differently to an Edinburgh show, differently to a tour show, differently to a stand-up set, differently to a corporate thing. So I think it's very hard to have a go anywhere act. You've got to know what each event requires. Like, for example, when I'm doing my club act in comedy clubs, I like to walk on with nothing, no bag, no table, and walk off with nothing. And part of that is I sort of want to look like a comic up front, so I'll do some gags before I even get into the tricks. And also, that when I was hammering the clubs and I was doing 3 gigs a night, I didn't want to wait till there was a break in the show to clear the stage. I wanted to jump in the car and go on to the next show, and make some money, you know. So that's the reason I constructed the comedy club act that way. Whereas with a corporate audience, because very often they're paying a lot of money, you maybe do want a bit of paraphernalia, so so they sort of feel like they're getting value, etc.
I just want to ask you sort of some more general questions, actually, because I think you'll have some interesting answers. Who's your favourite magician of all time?
I've got so many favourites. I like anyone who's a worker, and I think you can tell the difference between people that work and people that do it not so often.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, of course. So people who have done summer seasons or long contracts somewhere.
Just doing it to make their living.
Yeah.
I think the difference between someone that's doing it, maybe, at conventions, for example, there's a lot of magicians that have other jobs that lecture for magicians, and I think there's a real difference between those and people that are doing magic full time to pay their bills and their mortgages and whatever else. So I like anyone that's a worker, really. So I mentioned Pat Page to you before we started recording. I thought Pat Page was just one of the best. I mean, I like all-rounders as well, guys that can turn their hand and just, effortless. I like a lot of old guys.
Did you get to spend much time with Pat?
Yeah, I would have liked to have spent more time with him, but I was working on a show, and I can't remember what TV show it was, but I was working on The Miser's Dream for a programme, and got Pat for the day, and had just a day on The Miser's Dream with him, and it was amazing.
One day you won't forget, right?
Absolutely, so special. Just yeah.
You're a big Morecambe and Wise fan, I think, aren't you?
Big Morecambe and Wise fan, yeah. Big comedy fan, but Morecambe and Wise, the two Ronnies. Very fond. I'm quite a nostalgic person, and very fond of that sort of stuff, because that was stuff that we would sit down and watch as a family when I was a kid, and that's conjures up a lot of happy memories.
If there was a magician's trick and you could steal it and they wouldn't mind, any trick in all of history, what trick would you, if you could perform it, put it straight in your show, and they wouldn't mind, what would you?
Probably something that of Penn and Teller's. I'm just trying to think of their repertoire and what I think is great. First time I saw Penn do the pneumatic...
the nail gun.
The nail gun thing, I thought that was really good. Really, really good, and such a smart premise, and yeah, I mean, that stuff is just fantastic. And what's interesting is, they've got, going back to what I was saying about having an act, they clearly have, I mean, they've got a lot of material, but they've got like an act, that they're finishing on the bullet catch, or they have that thing, the fire eating finish. They've got a finishing thing that they finish on, and they've got all this new stuff. But a lot of that stuff that they do regularly was in their first special. It was just when they were getting a lot of heat, when they were on Broadway or off Broadway, or whatever. And they do the card stab thing, and all that stuff, and it's just so good. And I don't know what year that was, 1982. Probably completely wrong with the timeline there, but at the time, everything else that was happening magic wise, it just seems so different then, and it seems so different now. It's almost timeless,
Yeah.
So maybe something of theirs, I don't know. They've got so much good stuff. I love the thing where Teller ends up in the tank of water at the end of Act 1 in the live show. What a brilliant way to go into the interval. He's just dead in the tank. It's fantastic.
What would you say is the best gig you ever did? Like, is there one looking back now that you kind of... I know what I also like about you is you don't really like looking back. You always look to the future, don't you? You're one of those type of people.
Yeah, I don't know, really. Whatever. About 4 or 5 years ago, I did a Christmas show at the Queen Elizabeth Hall. The Queen Elizabeth Hall? The South Bank Centre, anyway. Big venue, massive barn of a venue. I was on the bill with Ronnie Corbett. He closed the show, and I was in the first half. And as I said, a big fan of the two Ronnies and stuff. And just working with him, when he would watch me do my spot every night. And in the interval, we would talk about what the audience were like.
Wow.
So to have Ronnie say, Oh, they were a bit lumpy tonight, aren't they? A bit
Lumpy?
Easy. Yeah, that's what you would say. The room's a bit lumpy, isn't it?
What does that mean?
I don't know what it meant, but I said, yes, Ronnie, it was lumpy. It was lumpy, but I think you can smooth it. And he would just go on and his walk-on would be the two Ronnie's themes, and we did it for like 10 days, and every night the hair on the back of my neck would stand up when I heard that song, that music, and watching him do his set. It was just Ronnie Corbett, I used to watch him as a kid. That's what's fantastic, you know, hanging out with Jeffrey. I used to watch Jeffrey as a kid.
Yeah.
Used to get my mum to get me home quick so we could watch Crackerjack and him as Great Soprando, and now to call him a good mate is that just blows my mind.
Yeah. Oh, that's amazing. Here's an interesting one.
I'll be the judge of that.
All right, okay. The best magic performance you ever saw, live or television?
God, I don't watch that.
Do you not watch a lot of TV? What do you think about TV magic these days?
I don't watch it.
I don't watch
TV really. I don't watch magic on TV. It's sort of my job, and I think of it like my job. You know, of course I love magic. Don't get me wrong, but I'm just not that bothered. You know.
Yeah.
So the great best magic performance I ever saw. How can you not watch Fred Capps and just think it's fantastic? You know, how can you not watch Pat and just think amazing? There's too many. I can't narrow it down to one. It's impossible.
Final question, Pete Firman.
Yep.
What advice would you give to a young magician? There's going to be some of them listening to this, hopefully. What advice would you give to someone who in 20 years would like to have a career like yours today?
Do what you like. Don't listen to what anyone says. Do what you like. Work a lot. And it'll be all right. Work a lot is so important. Just work. You know, just get out there. It doesn't matter what it is. If you want to be a close-upper, get a residency. You know, just do it a lot. It's the only way to get good.
Pete, thanks so much for doing this.
Pleasure.
It really has been awesome chatting to you. That was Mr. Pete Firman. Pete, thanks so much for doing the interview. Really, really appreciate it. Go to YouTube right now if you've got a few spare minutes. Have a look at some of Pete's work. A lot of the things we discussed, the TV stuff he's done, is on YouTube for you to look at right now. If you've never seen him perform live, go and see him as soon as possible. He is a brilliant live performer. It's always an education watching Pete Firman perform for a live audience. PeteFirman.co.uk has all of the tour date information. Thanks very much for tuning in. There'll be another new episode next Friday. We will see you then.